Hi, everybody. This is Hondo Carpenter. I am your Sports Illustrated beat writer covering the Las Vegas Raiders, and this is the Las Vegas Raiders Insider Podcast. It's great to be with all of you today. Hope you're doing well. Here for the NFL owners meeting. This will be the last update that we do from here. I'm going to apologize. As you know, we're in the lobbies and we're working, and so sometimes people going by, noise being made, even though it's very, very early in the morning. And just want to bring you, a day 4 update from the owners' meetings here in Florida. Couple of things that I want to address. First of all, don't forget, you can follow me on Instagram when you go to @Hondo Senior, @Hondo SR. You can also follow me on X, formerly known as Twitter, when you go to @Hondo Carpenter, HONDOCARPENTER. And of course, all of our articles and content when you go to si.com/NFL/Raiders. Now, I want to elaborate a little bit more. I told you yesterday about Tom Brady's interest in the Raiders not being voted on. I was very clear with you that there's no change. I believe absolutely that Mark Davis wants him to be an owner, and I believe he wants to be an owner. There are a couple of different reasons I've heard what has slowed it down. I don't think anything has stopped it. In the past, I've always told you that everybody seems to think it's a done deal. I certainly think it will get done, but I think there just have been some roadblocks and hurdles that they got to get over. The two things that I told you I found out, I'm fettering. I'm trying to get all the information so I can report on those. And I'll still continue to work towards that end, getting it to the point where I'm comfortable sharing it. But we're working on that. Had several people ask me yesterday, do you think it will get done? Well, if desire on Mark and Tom's position is the answer, yes, for sure. But there's, other people involved, other interests, whatever. So we'll continue to fetter that out and try to get you as much information as humanly possible to further you down the road in getting your information on this. Several rule changes, which we'll go over in depth tomorrow. There is a concern that the NFL is making decisions based on legal fear and that the game's being hurt. I think it was JT the Brick yesterday who had I thought, a really good tweet. I retweeted it. There is a concern that you're going to make the game of football flag football and then eliminate what people love about the game. I can tell you this. Players are very well aware of the risk of playing the game. They're aware of it. They understand it. They know that they're paid vast quantities of money to play this game. They willingly choose to play. I believe you want to do everything possible to make it safe. At the same time, I think there is a fine line between doing everything to make it safe, but still understanding there is an element of risk. And I think that the NFL has gotten dangerously close to the line in taking away what the game is. Do I think the game as it was in 2023 was healthy? I do. Do I think the game in 2023 was what it was like when I was a kid? No way. Do I think they're inching closer to hurting the game of football? For sure. I do. And I think there's some concerns, especially among defensive players, that all of the rules seem to be about them. I was texting with a Raider yesterday, who made the comment to me, all the rules have to do with us. And then they responded with a little bit of thoughts on it, and won't get into all that. But at some point it was, what about making the offense have to change? You can't keep saying almost all the changes are for player safety, but they're almost all against the defense. And I think there's an element of absolute truth there. AP, if you didn't watch the video I put up with him from the NFL's owner meetings, you got to watch it. It was his best that he's ever done. But he made a comment in there that part of the rule change, like with the hip drop tackle, is guys, keep getting bigger, faster, stronger. And if a defender isn't strong enough to bring a 250-pound guy down without having to do that, those are things you have to look at. So I can tell you the belief that I got is that the owners are always trying to mitigate legal risk. They're worried about that. And that sometimes they're moving in directions that are more out of fear than they're more out of substantive base. And so that's a term that someone used with me, and I like that term. So again, I think those are all interesting things, especially when you are a physical team like the Las Vegas Raiders. And there are other physical teams, they're not the only ones. But I think that is a definite concern around the league, though. And I can tell you, talking to several players, not just Raiders, but I texted several players, there was genuine frustration with how the whole thing is going down. So that's there, and we'll continue to dig on that and get you more information. In fact, I'm gonna talk with a few players and get back with you even some more thoughts on it. Again, offers are on the table in free agency. I talked with one NFL executive, not with the Raiders, late last night. It's late last night. Oh, it's early this morning now. Okay, but late last night, early this morning, who I had gotten a hold of him yesterday. And he said he'd get back with me, and he did late. I asked him, I said, I'm describing this to my listeners as the closer we get to the draft, prices are coming down. And he said, absolutely. There's a couple of free agents that his team has offers to that they think they're going to end up coming back to reality. So we're going to just continue to wait. Again, there are offers out there from the Raiders that I think very good chance the Raiders are going to get those guys. And as it starts to mitigate itself, we'll see. Now, a couple of you emailed me yesterday and wanted to know about, has there been any surprises in free agency? Yes. Interior offensive lineman has surprised a lot of people. That's why the Raiders upped their offer because they realized that what they thought was a fair offer was for last year, but Andre James cost more, and there was a big market for him. I can also tell you, but the interior offensive lineman, guards and centers, has stunned the NFL. Every team I've talked to has mentioned that, like, yeah, the interior offensive lineman was a big shock, just the costs and how everything went up. So those are all things that you want to think about. Those are all things that you want to process in your head, just about how the market has changed. Other places have been cheaper. And so as we watch how the whole thing plays out, again, there's offers on the table. I do not believe the Raiders are done at all signing free agents. And of course, we're going to keep a very close eye on that. Let's talk about some draft news. I told you the other day that I'm hearing Minnesota wanting to move up to get a quarterback, possibly even trading with the Bulls. Now, the Cardinals, as you know, are at 4. And so there's just some interesting things developing. There are some in the NFL, and when I say some, multiple teams who have told me they're hearing the Giants may be looking to move up to either get J.J. McCarthy or Drake May. Now, the Giants are, it goes Browns, Commanders, Patriots, and I think everybody agrees right now, Caleb, Jaden, JJ. That's how those three will go down. 4 is Arizona, that a lot of people thought were going to stay there and take Marvin Harrison, and 5 being the Bulls. Now, here's the latest of what I'm hearing from NFL people is that the Giants are at 6, and they are checking into what would it cost to move to 4, from 6 to 4. Is there any chance? Now, if you're Arizona and you think, okay, we like Marvin and Neighbors, the 2 wide receivers, and if we think 3 quarterbacks are going ahead of us, and we trade with a team and get to 5 or 6, and they take a quarterback at 4, which would be Drake May, and we like both receivers equally, all right, we're willing to make a 1 spot move or a 2 spot, and we know we'll still get one of our 2 guys. So there's a lot of interest about now, is it going to be Minnesota or New York, the G-men, that move up and secure Drake May? Now, why is this important to the Raiders? First of all, it's important because I know you care about the draft, but it's more important for other reasons. If a team is able to move up, okay, remember, we talked about overdrafting. Let's assume, for the sake of argument, in the first 6 picks, you've got 2 wide receivers, 4 quarterbacks. Okay. That now means there's 7 picks. Well, there's 6 before the Raiders, and the Raiders are the 7th pick at 13. Now you know there are going to be corners, defensive linemen, and a bunch of offensive linemen that are getting pushed down to you. There is nobody happier to hear about teams moving up right now because of how the board can potentially draft than the Raiders. It's pushing very, very good players down. I'll have my next mock draft out on Monday. I may even do one on Friday and Monday because of a couple different things I'm hearing. But what you're watching is there are going to be players that have very, very high grades falling to 13. I've already talked multiple times about Terrion Arnold. I've already talked multiple times about Byron Murphy of Texas, but there are others, and I'm going to get into those. So I would just keep your eyes on that right now. I've got a couple of calls in to some people who I tremendously respect based on information that they've given me multiple times in the past, trying to figure out for you and really try to nab what the Raiders are going to do. I expect them to go corner, offensive line, or defensive line at 13. That's exactly what I expect. So we're going to hold firm here. But the fact now that there's potential of the Giants wanting to move up, Minnesota wanting to move up, and again, they're all have a lot shorter trips, and it doesn't preclude on the cost. So it's just making it very viable for the Raiders to get a great player at 13. Now, here's the other thing that you need to be cognizant of is that if they stay at 13, but things go the way it looks like, and in the world, if you play, I'm from the Midwest, so we're always playing cards. It's called hole. And when you play cards, hole means what are your right expectations for your partner to do or for the next move in the game to be. And oftentimes, if the draft goes according to hole, we're going to see some real great things. So I asked someone last night, I told you I talked to either last night or early this morning, I don't remember, I'm sorry, who mentioned to me it also puts the Raiders in a tremendous position to trade down and then to grab someone else's. So think 17 to 25, which is where I've been telling you. If they're able to move to 17 to 25 and in addition pick up a team's 2nd round pick, this is such a deep draft. So you literally could see them drop a little bit, get a corner and 2 offensive linemen, a corner and 2 defensive linemen that are excuse me, a corner and one defensive lineman with an offensive lineman, or a corner and two two offensive linemen. Sorry. No, I don't foresee two defensive linemen. And because of the highness of where they're at and the value and where they have those guys projected, you could pick up three starters at three critical positions. So right now, the if I had to describe probably Telesco and Pearson, everybody, it's yes, yes, yeah. And at the same time, you don't rule out with pro days and top 30 visits, you don't rule out them falling in love with somebody and making a move and them moving up. Again, if I was stacking statistically, I think the chance of them moving up is significantly small, but still a real chance. Second percentage lowest option would be trading down third, which is the highest option, them staying pat at 13. So there's where it sits right now with the Raiders. Now, I have some players that I want to talk to you about that I am hearing a lot of very good things. Cole Fotheringham was a tight end who last year, a lot of people on this team felt had made the team. A lot of people felt he had made the team. And the Raiders decided that he hadn't made the 53 and he went away. Now he's back. And there are a lot of people impressed with Cole Fotheringham and just work ethic and how things are going. So I want you to keep that name in the back of your head. Am I saying today he makes the 53? No, I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is I think the odds are in his favor to make it. He's a competitor. He's a battler out of Utah. The kid's tough as nails. He blocks, he catches. So please keep an eye on him. I think he is somebody that sorry, sometimes people go by and they wave. I think he is somebody that is a legitimate player. He fits the mold of AP, underrated, hard worker. He's a fighter. Again, I like all of that about him. I know that his teammates like that about him. And I just think that's something that you want to be made aware of and not lose sight of. Again, big point there. And interesting point with Cole. All right. Now, this is important to address and it's something that I think needs to be looked at. When you're looking at the Las Vegas Raiders in Zamir White, there is a lot of budding extreme optimism with him. I did not realize, and I fully confess this to you, the amount of respect that he had around the NFL. I was completely unaware of it. And I knew what the Raiders thought, and the Raiders were impressed. The Raiders liked him. The Raiders, that's why they were, they didn't match what Green Bay offered, even though they made an extremely generous offer to Josh Jacobs. The thing that stood out to me was talking to NFL people yesterday. I did a lot yesterday just asking them about the team. Now, I've already shared with you about the workouts, so I'm not going to get into that. But yesterday, I talked with a lot of people about the roster. What are some things that stood out to you on the roster? And what I thought was fascinating, and I told you this the other day, that I don't think it's getting enough discussion. And yesterday just cemented that belief in my thinking process, is Zamir White. I had one particular NFL executive tell me late yesterday that one thing that they saw on tape from Zeke that they didn't feel like they had seen at Georgia. They knew he was a power runner. They knew he could cut and go. They knew all of that, and they liked him, told me that they liked him and wanted to draft him. But they said what surprised them a little bit, and they said they saw it. They really saw it the first time against Kansas City on Christmas Day. Matter of fact, he referenced to me. I'm sitting there with my kids watching the game, And I was surprised how nimble on his feet he was. He showed me some balance on the balls of his feet that he hadn't seen before. He goes, that really pricked my interest. And he said at one point, he was texting with a member of, I don't know if it was his team or another team, but a friend wishing him happy Merry Christmas. Hey, you watching the game? Yeah. And he said to him, they were talking about Zamir's shiftiness. That's my word. That wasn't what he used. I thought that's very thing because I mentioned to you yesterday, I think that's something that's not getting talked about a lot. But then when you specifically dig in with people. Now, a couple of other things that I talked with people about yesterday when I talked about the roster. And basically my question was, hey, give me your thoughts on the Raiders roster. And again, Zamir clearly was number one. But a lot of talk about what that's not fair. Zamir wasn't number one, but Zaire was a top of mind product. I'm going to get to number one in a minute. The other was Jakobi Meyers. They thought the way Jakobi played, they thought it just made him better having Devontae. And so a lot of talk about him. Malcolm Kuntz is a name that a lot of them just talked about. He just looked different. I talked with one person very familiar with the Christmas Day game against the Chiefs and talked about he didn't even look the same. Just his entire confidence level. And they went back and told me, go back and watch it. I plan on doing this on probably Sunday. I'm going to watch a couple of games from last year early. And then I'm going to watch a couple late. I'm going to rewatch the Christmas Day game. And they go, you can just tell in his body language, rather than, man, I don't want to screw up or what am I doing? It's, I'm going to go make a play. And that was very, very key. Now, I want to get to the player that when I asked yesterday about the roster, everyone brought up, and it was Aiden O'Connell. And I talked with several teams. Now, I purposely talked to some teams that I knew really liked them coming out of the draft. Now, I want to make this point abundantly clear because anytime you talk about Aiden, it becomes controversial because people, the quarterback is such a hot button. I get that. I understand that. It is the most important position in football, bar none. So please hear me. I am cognizant of that. And whatever your systemology is, you want to make sure, you've got your quarterback. So when I said to him, talk to me about the Raiders roster, give me 4 or 5 names. Almost all of them brought Zamir up, but everyone brought up Aiden. So when I asked them about Aiden, and I said, tell me what it is about Aiden. What's your thought process on Aiden? What are you thinking about Aiden? What stands out to you about Aiden? And they said to me, you go back and look, down 2 coaches. Josh did nothing to help him at the Chargers game. But when you look at what he did, protecting the football, putting themselves in positions. Now, I brought up because I thought it was fair. Yeah, but how do you score no points and then blow a team out? How do you do that? And they begin to break down for me because I wanted to be able to tell you what they thought. I know what I thought. I wanted to tell you what they thought. And they begin to bring up, well, you also have to remember the playbook wasn't his playbook. There are other people there. And then he's also being told by his coaches, take no risks, protect the football, let our defense win the game. Matter of fact, one executive who's very familiar with the Raiders said to me, when I listen to your fans go after him, I keep thinking, if you watched that game and you saw how he played, he was clearly told, take 0 risks. And he did exactly what he was told. But the guy still threw 8 touchdowns, no interceptions, and went 3-1 against the AFC West. I can tell you, nobody took shots at Raider Nation. None of that. None of them said, we're convinced he's Kenny Stabler either. But they all said, I'm surprised he's being criticized as heavily as he is, that doesn't make a lot of sense to us. I can tell you that if the Raiders had made the decision to move on, there was a large trade market. I asked several teams if he had come available, do you think that he'd have been somebody that you would have traded for? And got several. Yes, absolutely. So the respect that he had was very high. Now, you may be convinced he's not the guy. Well, then they should trade him. That's your decision. Not being critical of you. I'm simply presenting to you the information. A lot of people felt like the sky was very, very high for him, and that the sky was very, very high for the Raiders. I had one guy tell me, I think Minshew was great because you got to have two quarterbacks, but I'm looking for that rookie now. And I had a couple when I brought up Anthony Brown, who's still on this roster. Now, someone asked me recently, why are you talking about Anthony Brown? I'm talking about Anthony Brown because I was told by somebody in the organization, you should probably start talking about Anthony Brown. People are just pretending he's not here. And he's got a chance. And he's got talent. So that's why I'm bringing him up. I've also asked people about specifically Harrison, the tight end, and Alexander Mattison, the running back. And I was a little surprised at some of the answers. I think they were both good signings, potential guys, not overpaid. So I thought they were good signings. What stood out to me, though, was several people saying, yeah, you can tell those are kind of AP guys. That's where he's going. Lunch pail guys, thumpers, guys that aren't afraid of the dirty work. I must confess to you that I think I may have undersold them a little bit. I talked about neither was a sexy pick, and I don't think they were. Even now, I don't. But I think it may have underrated where they were, the systems that they were in, and what they want to do now. So that is something I thought was very important to address with you and to mention with you specifically. So things are livening up here. I'm going to let you go. That's the latest. That's our day 4 update from the owners' meetings, things that we're hearing. Hope that you enjoyed it. I hope we've been able to give you information. Tomorrow, we're going to, got some very specific Raider stuff as well as addressing the rules changes, but a lot of big stuff coming up, a lot of good stuff. So from all of us at the team, we appreciate you. I hope you're enjoying all the articles. Remember, go to Hondo SR on IG and Hondo Carpenter on X, formerly known as Twitter. So we appreciate y'all. Have a wonderful day. God bless you.